Marie, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm really excited to hear about your journey. And what impresses me most is you went from air hostess to mother to global entrepreneur and founder of a business. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Of course. Hi, Susie. It's lovely to see you. Yeah, it's brilliant actually to be reminded of that journey, which now seems quite a long time ago. But absolutely, air hostess out of school for a number of years, left that to become a mum, young family, including a set of twins. But there was just an opportunity in the industry that my husband was working in to create something here in Scotland. And I think I felt at the time I needed to do something with my brain, and it would be good to do something as a family or something that served the family. So my husband and I putting our heads together made sense, very much a sort of mumpreneur idea at the kitchen table, but it grew legs and it got me really excited, and it gave me an opportunity to learn. And that's really the journey I've been on for the last 18 years.
Brilliant. And tell me a little bit about what has been your biggest success in this industry.
Wow. I mean, it's a hard question to answer because there's so many successes, Susie, but probably one thing is actually just starting the business and making it happen, which actually, sometimes my advice to people is you've just got to give it a go. Now, at the time, you didn't see that as your biggest success. You thought you're just doing something, but looking back, taking that punt, if you like, and giving it a go is a big success. But then, of course, like things like winning awards, being on the Phoebe 100 list, for example, was a big success. But I find it really hard to define one. So I have to say, just taking the punt and starting the business was a big success. It put me on a whole different route in my life than I ever would have been on without it.
Okay, I'm thinking, about the other side. What's been your biggest failure?
Oh God, there's probably been many more failures than successes, to be honest, Susie. But probably I would say one of my recent biggest failures, which in turn has turned into a positive. And the way my mind works as an entrepreneur is a failure is a chance to learn. If you don't fail, you're in your comfort zone. And also it's that from every challenge is an opportunity, which in many times it's the last thing you want to hear. But so for me, one of our biggest failure was probably growing too fast without really understanding the impact that could have on our cash flow, which sounds quite pedantic, but it left the company a bit weaker than I would have liked. But out of it has born something really beautiful that we're reaping the rewards of now. So potentially with too much thinking, we wouldn't have done that. So it's not really a failure, but it's probably something I would do different if I could have my time to do it over again.
Okay, and I'm just thinking about that though. You've turned it into an opportunity. Out of that now opportunity, what are the best bits of that opportunity?
Well, the best bits about the opportunity is probably we're much, much further ahead than we would have been if we delayed and waited for the right time. And I say that in the right way because sometimes there's never a right time. But also it's just broadened our platform as a business and our global growth opportunities. So it's probably one of our biggest opportunities we have in the business right now that we wouldn't be able to do unless we'd made that decision. But that's what I mean. There's no point in hindsight apart from learning for how you might do things better in the future. And potentially turning the question on its head, my biggest failure would have been not investing in that area of the business at that time. So it's a real yin and yang. And I think failure is such a tough word because out of failure, you always move on. There's always learnings and and sometimes there's a reason for it. So it's a funny word to use in business, isn't it?
It is. And in that journey that you've had in this industry, in the business, what's been the best bit of advice you've received on that journey?
Again, when I read this question, I was thinking, gosh, how do you give one best bit of advice? But the thing that sticks in my head is somebody once quoted to me, it's a quote, I can't remember who famously said this quote, but it was along the lines of vision without execution is hallucination. And he was making the point that you can talk and talk and talk about your ideas, but unless you actively actually do something about it, it's kind of pointless. And that really gave me a big kick up the bum that I needed, I think.
Fantastic. And then thinking, and you've sort of mentioned it earlier, what is that, people starting business always want to know, what's that bit of advice that you wish you'd known earlier?
I think what jumps to mind for me on that one actually is holding my own power and believing in my own opinion. And I don't mean singularly believing I have all the answers. I've always believed in surround yourself with amazing, experienced, well-educated people who do the job better than you can do. And that has been one of the biggest success stories and something I'm really proud of at LS. However, amongst that, sometimes you can lose confidence in your own opinion, and being the founder and the owner of this business, just remembering the power of my own voice and opinion in amongst that mix, if that makes sense. So don't lose that. There's only one version of us, and we're the best version of ourselves. So owning that power, I think, is something I wish I'd learned a bit quicker.
Marie, thank you very much for spending time with us. Your tips and thoughts will be really helpful to future female founders. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. It's lovely to see you.